Hey everybody, welcome to the Orange Whip webinar. We are coming to you guys live from Easley, South Carolina. You got me, Steve, Director of Marketing for the Orange Whip, and Jim Hackenberg, the creator, developer, and owner of the Orange Whip. So thank you guys for attending. We're very excited about these webinar series that we have planned. We've got some great content coming up in the near months, some great instructors, some great content, short game, off season, and like I said, we're really excited about it. And for you PGA professionals, we'll also have MSR points available for these webinars in the future. So look out for more information coming up on future webinars. Today's webinar, Jim's going to talk a little bit about the golf swing and his philosophy behind the golf swing and how it's kind of changed and developed throughout the years. We're going to probably be on for about 30-45 minutes depending upon how long questions go. Send your questions in anytime you want. We'll address them at the end of the webinar. We'll try to get to as many as we can. For all you attendees, on the screen, you should have a dashboard. If you can't see anything, there might be a little orange or red arrow. Click on that, and a screen will come up. You can view some material that we have uploaded to the webinar, and also you can type in your questions there. The recording for the webinar will be available. You'll see a few emails following, a survey and just a follow-up email about with the recordings, and you can view that on demand whenever you want. But without further ado, let me introduce Jim Hackenberg. He is the developer of the Orange Whip. Many of you may know him or met him throughout the country at different teaching seminars. He developed the Orange Whip. The Orange Whip is the #1 swing trainer in golf. It has been ranked the #1 teaching and training aid by the PGA.com. By PGA Magazine and the GRAA. It's also used by over 300 of the tour players on the top tours. So Jim, take it away, and we'll see you guys at the end of the webinar. So Jim, go ahead.
Great, thank you, Steve. Appreciate this opportunity. I'm going to do this here, get right to the PowerPoint. All right, let's see. First off, yes, the topic today is going to be the golf swing. Is it complicated or is it simple? And that's a big question because there's so many different perspectives on the golf swing and so many different ways to view what accomplishes a consistent, powerful golf swing. And then there's a big question, can it be simple? Because there's a lot of technical details involved with the motion of the body to make that full swing. So I'm looking forward to this because we're going to have a lot of PGA professionals on the webinar today listening in. We're going to have a lot of instructors, and we're going to have a lot of passionate golfers who just love the game of golf, and they want to move forward with their own game. So let me start with this. Let me give a brief background regarding my my golf life and how it all came to be. I'm from North Dakota. I grew up in a large family I was number 8 of 9 children. And no one in my family played golf, and my parents did not play golf. So I learned the game with some neighbor friends that brought me to the course at the age of 12 years old. I played a handful of times as a 12-year-old, but at the age of 13 is really when I got hooked on the game. But the problem with learning at a municipal golf course and not having any formal instruction, I was self-taught. I was self-taught on how to play the game and some influence from my friends, but they were also self-taught, so the very questionable information I probably was receiving at the time. So starting out, I was, like most golfers, I would slice the ball as a kid, and I quickly learned that if I were to turn my hands to the right as a right-handed golfer, I would develop a very strong grip. And with this strong grip, you learn a lot of bad habits. So I started the game with a strong grip. Then I progressed into buying many instructional books. I read a lot of the very famous ones, the Jack Nicklaus Golf My Way, Ben Hogan 5 Lessons, Jimmy Ballard's How to Swing Like an Athlete. There's so many books out there, and many more that I had read as a young man. But coupled with their information and my strong grip, there was a lot of roadblocks I would run into, and that made it very difficult. And then as I progressed as a player, I got an opportunity to qualify. I was a walk-on to the Arizona State golf team. And I had the great opportunity to play golf with Phil Mickelson at Arizona State. He was a freshman the same year that I was a walk-on to the golf team. So that was a very unique experience to meet up with Phil. And while playing college golf, and then after playing college golf and pursuing a tour professional career, trying to make it onto the tour, I would meet tons and tons of other golfers just like me. What happened in that experience was I wanted information. I was trying to gather and gain as much information as possible. But what it led to was by the time I was about 30 years old, I had so much information and so much different viewpoints, it became very complicated for me. It became almost stressful because there was just so much control involved with the swing I was trying to develop. There was so much thought. I mean, I would stand over a ball in a tournament, I'd have 3 or 4 swing thoughts. And I would imagine that's not uncommon amongst a lot of us out in the golfing world. So after not making it to the PGA Tour, I went towards becoming a golf instructor. I needed to make a living. I needed to further my career in golf because I wanted to stay with golf. And then as a golf instructor, I entered that world as a guy with a million swing thoughts. So my first few years of teaching, I'll acknowledge I probably hurt more people than I helped. I probably added a lot of swing thoughts. I probably added a lot of control issues to their game. That then became a very difficult way to help these players become better. So that's the big question. How can I help these players to become better and more athletic? And it really seems like the best players have this beautiful rhythm and they're always in balance. So my goal in life was, how do I attain that? And I was doing it the long, difficult way with a lot of instruction and a lot of complicated issues as far as how to control the club and your body throughout the golf swing. But then something very unique happened. A very good friend of mine, Patrick Moore, who was an All-American golfer out of University of North Carolina. Pat qualified for the PGA Tour in 2003. He asked me to caddy for him, and I thought to myself, that would be a wonderful opportunity to see what these tour pros do. Why are they tour pros, and how did they progress to that level? So having the opportunity to work with Pat and watch these tour pros was very advantageous, and I wanted to use it as a great leap, basically as a stepping stone into a higher level of understanding of the golf swing. And I entered it with the million golf swing thoughts and the control issues, and it was something that I carried for a while. But then what happened was and then going back to Patrick, he had really enjoyed practicing and he did a lot of it. Now he had a pretty strong grip, and with a strong grip, you really need to focus on what your club and arms are doing, because if not, you're going to hook the ball pretty strongly if you let it just freely take off and freely swing and release. So having this opportunity to spend a lot of time with Pat Moore on the range, I also had a chance to watch some of the best golf swings in the world. I have an image here of Jeff Ogilvy. Now on the PGA Tour, there's a ton of beautiful golf swings. But in 2003, I had the opportunity to watch Jeff Ogilvy play a few times as well as watch him practice a lot. And by watching his motion and by watching how simple he swung the golf club, it was a really an eye-opening moment, because I was looking at the golf swing as a controlled action, and I would watch Jeff hold the golf club as if the golf club was born in his hands. His grip was beautiful. It was very neutral, very balanced, and very comfortable and relaxed. His posture was very athletic. He's a tall, thin guy, but he was very athletic and balanced very well as a golfer. When I had the opportunities, I would stand and look down the line when he would hit golf balls. And when he would swing, and he'd swing through that golf ball, it would fly exactly the direction the momentum of his club head was swinging. And that sounds very basic and very obvious, but it's really not. A lot of people don't think of it from that perspective. They're controlling the motion of the shaft and the grip and the club face all throughout the golf swing, whereas Jeff looked like he was just swinging a momentum. And I thought to myself, how can it possibly look that easy, and how can he be that consistent? And to be honest, Jeff Ogilvy did not seem to practice a lot or hit a lot of range balls like a number of other tour pros. So I thought there must be something there. There's something that's easy. There's something that's simple. And as I slowly continued to process this information and see that he is just making a motion as if the golf ball is not there. And because he has a good grip, and because he has a great setup, and because he is in balance, and because he is swinging in rhythm, the golf club will do all the work for you. And that's the beauty of the technology these days. The clubs are built so well. If you can produce a consistent, athletic, rhythmic motion in balance, it will become simple. It will become athletic, and it will feel natural. So, having said that, what changed in my mind as to the way I looked at the swinging of a golf club? I went from being a guy who controlled every inch of his golf swing to actually switching to swinging it completely in rhythm. And when I say swinging completely in rhythm, I mean swinging the golf club as if it was a ball on the end of a chain. So this was right here my very first concept as to what the orange whip would eventually become. If you could hold this device here, this is what in medieval times was called the mace and chain. An individual would hold that handle, swing it around, get it into a rhythm, get some momentum built up, and then strike something, generally probably someone in opposition to you. So therefore, it's a dangerous weapon, but it's also really what I believe could have led to the game of golf with this motion. So I started to focus on the golf swing as a weighted ball in place of a club head, a chain in place of the shaft, and then you have your grip. And if a person can learn to swing this device, they will learn that the only way to make it so it doesn't wrap around your neck and hurt you as an individual, you have to start very slowly, develop a pendulum-like motion that will synchronize your hands, your arms, your body, and your footwork. So that really became my whole new philosophy. And it was amazing because what it really did for my mind was is it eliminated amazing amount of swing thoughts and control issues, and it allowed me to turn it into a natural, and very trustworthy motion that I could almost zone out and focus on the target and forget about my swing. And that's something that had never happened to me before. So with this concept, I was able to change it into a complicated motion, into a very simple athletic motion. But as you would guess, my first few prototypes made in this manner were too dangerous to show to my students, so I never got that far with the version. This is what I had built. This here is my very first orange whip. It is a fiberglass shaft that I purchased from Home Depot. The grip is from a fishing rod. It's a foam grip that I cut off of a fishing rod. And you'll notice on the close-up pictures I've got washers. They're heavy washers on each end. And there's a nut on each end that you can remove and add or replace weight. After I'd made this original prototype and experimented with it with my own swing and really seemed to like the effect of it, I brought this to a good friend of mine's house. He was a scratch golfer, and we invited over a few other golf professional friends of ours and other low handicap players. And after a couple of hours in the backyard experimenting with this, we quickly learned by adjusting the weights there was different sensations by how much weight was on each end. After about a 2-hour period, we had balanced it out so the weight that's in the head portion is equivalent to the weight that's in the on the end of the grip, the counterweight end of the product. When it was equally balanced, that was the easiest way for all of us to find our natural swing plane and to make a motion that kept us in balance, even though we were creating some nice speed and developing a powerful motion, we were still in balance. So this was the original version, but as you can tell, it needed a little bit of cleaning up before bringing it to market. And this is where we've brought on the full-size orange whip trainer, and this is what we currently sell. This is our rendition of what I saw that day when I was watching Jeff Ogilvy hit golf balls. I saw this ball and chain. I saw this motion. And that's really where the interest started for me, and it really changed my my viewpoint on it. So I made some of these prototypes early on. I used them in my golf lessons so that my students could understand what I was talking about with this ball and chain. And after a short amount of lessons, I had a number of my students state to me, Jimmy, I'd like to buy this thing from you. So that's when the light bulb went off, and I decided to pursue the business of making orange whips and selling them. And what's been nice is we have a very strong following, but there's still some concern or consideration as to how to use it, why to use it, and what benefits can they attain. And that's a wonderful question because, this original concept that I developed was my students weren't swinging like Jeff Ogilvy or the tour players. So how was I going to be able to have them feel what I was talking about? Well, after the product was launched, I was bringing this product out expecting to sell it to many of just the average golfers. But fortunately, the tour players, the top instructors, and the better golfers at these golf clubs, excuse me, they were the ones who understood it the best. So after realizing that this product can be used by many different players, it was really a benefit that it's not just for the bad golfer. This is for everyone to synchronize their golf swing motion and make it very athletic. So, excuse me. So we have here what a lot of typical golfers go through. They have many different thoughts in their mind. They are trying to control the golf club. They're trying to control the impact of the golf ball. And it leads to unnecessary tension and control, and it really takes away from our athleticism. So by making the focus on all these details, golf became complicated. And we've all experienced the complication of that. What I'd like to do is I'd like to go through a series of let's call it athletic events or sports that people will do and how they get into their zone and how they get to their natural motion. Because the complication side of this is really the difficult side. I want to make this simple, athletic, and easy for most golfers or most new players as well as seasoned veterans to understand and accept. So I'm going to go into athletic motion. What we have here is, this is right after impact of what became a home run swing. What I'd like you to look at in this image is notice the extension of his arms and his bat. They're just fully extended away from his torso, but his hands are centered with his chest. What that means to me is that he is rotating and the arms are traveling with the body and he's allowing the bat to release naturally. Look at his footwork. It looks as if he's on just the toe of his right foot and the heel of his left, but his core is still centered and balanced over his lower body. And when he finishes this swing, he is in perfect balance. That is something we all aspire to, not just in baseball, but actually in golf. This is what we look for in golf. Is this free and athletic of emotion? Now that sounds easy to do, but I would guarantee this gentleman here has done this thousands of times. He's been swinging a bat since he was a young kid, learning this motion and then trusting it. So repetition is the key element with proper setup issues installed at a young age. Here we have a tennis player. This is just past impact. She is launched off of the ground. So what I'm seeing in this is she is leveraging off the ground, releasing the racket, but she's rotating through. So her body has released naturally through after pushing off of the ground and rotating. I would liken this to a Bubba Watson swing where he goes all out. There's times where his feet look like they're slipping out of the way. Actually, what I believe he's doing is he is launching off of the ground and allowing his golf club to whip through the golf ball and create the power that he generates from a pretty thin frame. But he is creating so much momentum and so much power through this rotation. Again, I will look at this image and I will see that she has probably done this 1,000 times because she will land balanced and ready for the return volley back toward her. But again, repetition leads to these natural-looking athletes. Here's a wonderful image. This is a gentleman on a surfboard. He looks very calm and balanced in the pipeline. I mean, this is amazing. A huge wave is over his head. He is perfectly balanced. He is flowing with the wave, and it looks wonderful. I don't know how many of us could handle this situation, but because of repetition, because he has done so much of this and so much trust and confidence, he feels athletic, and he's probably taking the technical side out of surfing, and he's feeling it. He is feeling what this motion will be like. I then jump to this snowboarder. So this snowboarder is coming down the hill, turns right into this banked wall, goes into the air, and starts to rotate. Now this rotation in midair started down here at the bottom part where they're settling in, they're balancing their core, and once they launch, they can start to rotate their body. They rotate in balance, they spin around, they land, and they go right back to snowboarding. And again, it amazes me how easy they make this look, how simple they make this look, but they've had to do this thousands of times. They've had to learn to trust their body when they're doing this, and they've had to learn to stay in balance. So I go back to the repetition. The more reps you can do, and the more you are in a good setup and an athletic position, the more likely this can become a natural situation for you. And finally, in regards to the athletic motion, I love this image because this is someone at the top of a swing. He's swinging back and forth. When he gets to this high point, you can almost tell that he's floating there for just a second. Not even a full second. He's just floating there and ready to go the other way. This to me is like the golf swing. This is the transition in our golf swing. Some tour players do it so beautifully. They wait for it at the top and they allow it to unload all that momentum to their target. This is when I really realized that the golf swing was like a ball and chain motion to me, almost like a full pendulum, but going further back. So I really like this picture because I think we can all associate to this, especially if we think back to when we were a child and on our swing set. When you get to that highest point, you just feel yourself float before you go the other way. If the golf swing is complicated and controlling, you're going to get to this point and you're going to tense up and you're going to force the club down. And that's what a lot of the slicers of the golf ball do. They tense up, they throw the club over the top, they smash down into it, and they glance it. And this glancing blow puts a side spin on it that it will slice wildly to the side. And they do not understand how to eliminate the slice. The obvious cure for a lot of these players is that they will adjust their grip to make that club face square up at impact. I consider that having two wrongs trying to make a right. And it never worked for me, and thank goodness I finally changed my swing motion or my grip so that I did not have to control my impact position. I could swing freely through this golf ball. So with those athletes that I showed, I'd like to briefly talk about some of the instructional drills and concepts we use with the Orange Whip so that your golfers, as well as yourselves, can find your most simple and athletic golf swing without it being complicated. Now, before I get into these drills, I do want to interject this. A good grip is an essential part of a developing and learning golfer. Now, don't get me wrong. There's multiple tour professionals who've had great careers with a strong grip. I think it's possible, but I think it's the hard way to go. And I understand not many people want to back up out of a strong grip because it feels very foreign, and they feel they will lose their golf swing and they will back up too far, I think is their concern. But when teaching, I really encourage the idea that encourage your students to get a nice neutral grip, and then also encourage a nice neutral setup to allow their body to work very athletically. If they struggle with that, I firmly understand it. And actually, let me even state this. When I came up with the Orange Whip concept of teaching, I wouldn't change a person's grip immediately during the lesson. I would teach them this natural swinging motion, and once they got it, they would start to hook the ball quite a bit. At that point, we would gradually move the grip back. It wouldn't be all in one day. It would be a slow process. But the beauty of that is they can start to see that they can actually hook the ball. And as we all know as golf instructors, if there was ever a time where we've had to snap hooks, that's not very fun. So we want to move away from the snap hooks very quickly. So we want to learn the motion, the simple athletic motion. The grip and the setup are always things you will work on with yourself and with your students. I think for the rest of my life, I will always be checking and trying to improve my setup and my grip, because those are the essential positions you need to be in athletically to make yourself swing like an athlete. So with the picture here I have on the left, I'm standing on the orange peel, and in a few minutes I will get deeper into the orange peel, but I'm basically using the orange peel to center and balance my body while I do these drills. You certainly do not need an orange peel to do these drills, but I believe they enhance the experience and make it easier for the student or the golfer to really feel the difference in how to use their body athletically. This torso twist is basically a medicine ball drill. I've borrowed it from people who use a medicine ball to, to really strengthen a person's back and encourage them to rotate their body. So I hold the orange whip with my palms to the sky, arms fully extended, but extended at stomach height. Not chest height, but stomach height. I do not tilt over as I would in a golf swing, because I want to make this an easier motion for people to understand. So from this position, I am going to use my footwork to make my upper body rotate. So I will push off with my left foot to start, rotate, and then I'll push with my right foot to go the other way. So imagine that that's not an orange whip. Imagine that's a medicine ball and I'm going to throw it to a target towards the middle of the screen. I would want to turn back and then rotate through so I get the most power from my body and the least likely way that I will hurt my back. Because if you look at a lot of high handicap golfers, they do not turn their body this way. They will swing their arms and they will lift the club up, but their body is always facing that golf ball. I believe, my opinion is, so they don't lose sight of it and they don't miss it. But if you imagine for a second a pitcher in baseball not turning away from the batter and trying to create some speed. It's near impossible. They have to rotate back, rotate through, let the lead leg plant, and then whip that arm as fast as they can, and all that momentum to go towards the strike zone. Once a person can learn to do this, then I move forward in my teaching. Next situation I have here is called the hinging forearm rotation. It sounds like a complicated drill, and in certain regards, if it's overthought, it could be in a way. But I'd like to present it in the easiest way I know possible and relate it to other sports. So this time I will get into my golf stance, slight, a nice shoulder width stance, slight flex to the knees, a tilt from the hips, and my spine straight in line with my tailbone, my spine, and my neck are all in a nice line. I will hold the orange whip with one hand at the very bottom of the grip, if not even slightly below the grip. The purpose of this is to make the device seem lighter and easier to manage with one hand. I will start by slowly swinging it back and forth in front of me like a pendulum, allowing my wrist to hinge to support it on each side, but I'm also, because of the weight of the device, it's going to encourage my forearm to rotate a little bit. This is very natural, and this needs to happen in the golf swing, but I want it to happen naturally. So by many years ago stumbling upon that I needed to evenly balance the orange whip to keep it on balance and to keep it on the proper swing plane, this is where that comes in handy. If I take my hand back and I lift up the orange whip and I hinge it into a plane that's not natural, it will feel awkward and out of place. If I throw it prematurely, it'll throw me off balance onto my toes. What I'm looking for in this drill is to go back and forth and make this very natural and make this free so that I can repeat it back and forth, almost like I'm playing tennis. This is very much like a tennis forehand and a tennis backhand. And if you do this every day, this will become a very natural free motion, and it will loosen up your wrist, your forearm, your shoulders, and your back. And it's going to coordinate the skill of your footwork working with your upper body. And finally, on the right side of the screen, we've got the full swing. This is how most people currently use the orange whip, and it's potentially the most effective drill. although I will still encourage the other drills to learn the simpler motor skills of our body. On the full swing drill, I will start by getting into my setup position. I will slowly pendulum back and forth, almost like it's a one-piece takeaway. So it almost looks like a grandfather clock swinging back and forth in front of me. I go a little further back. As I get past hip height, I start to allow my wrist to hinge, and same thing on the follow through. And the wrist hinge is to support the weight of the orange whip or the golf club. And as I continue this motion, because I'm doing it in repetition, if I do it incorrectly or out of balance, it's going to throw me off balance. So the only way you can continue this in repetition is to be in a good rhythm and be on the proper swing plane. And this will lead back to when I was showing the athletes in their various sports. If you do this 10 to 15 times in a row and do this every day, pretty soon you will be like those athletes who make it look so easy and so natural, and it will feel natural to you. It'll feel simple, and it will eliminate a lot of the external swing thoughts. So by doing this motion back and forth in balance, once you get comfortable with that, I encourage golfers to power it up or speed it up a little bit to create a little speed. We all want to hit it further, and we all want to hit it straighter. I believe by doing this drill, you will accomplish both. But if you're swinging it back faster and it starts to bounce off your back or pull you off balance, slow it down. Don't go quite as far back, because you're basically pulling yourself off balance if it's going too far back and you're losing control. So I always recommend slowing down, shorten the swing a bit, but as you get confident and comfortable again, you can expand that swing and you can create a little more speed. Now let's jump into what the orange peel is all about. We've talked about the basic drills of learning the athletic motion of the body. And when I developed the orange whip, I really thought I had the holy grail of the golf swing. I thought this is everything every golfer will need. And I still believe that in the sense of rhythm. But then balance was sometimes an issue in my own game, and I was wondering what was happening. Why was I at times losing balance? And I started to notice a shot pattern in my golf game where I was hitting these soft blocks to the right. They were high blocks and slightly to the right. Now a lot of them were still in the fairway, but I was losing distance. What I realized after talking to a good friend of mine, a golf professional, he noticed I was sliding into the ball. I was definitely sliding into the golf ball, or better said, sliding towards the target. And by sliding too much towards the target, you tend to let the arms lag behind, and you tend to get stuck behind you, and therefore the ball is going to go higher and to the right or be blocked out to the right. So I needed to find a way to keep myself more centered and balanced, and I happened to be looking at a picture by Leonardo da Vinci called Vitruvian Man. And that is the image that I've placed over the orange peel. Basically, Vitruvian Man is this person standing inside of a sphere or a bubble, and as you can see if you look at the feet that are spread apart, they're at an angle. They're almost tilted inward. And what that will do for an athlete is it'll center their core. So my new thought was that, hey, if a golfer, a baseball player, or a tennis player could swing inside of this sphere, they are going to accomplish an athletic rotary motion without the desire to move laterally. And that was really a big moment for me, because then I started to realize all the powerful golfers on TV who hit it pretty straight do this. Rory McIlroy does this. Jason Day does this. Dustin Johnson is one of the best at this. I mean, he rotates, and his core seems to just be rotating in balance, and he's not sliding, or it's not a violent motion in that regard. Similar to this image here. Instead of my core, I've placed a fish bowl there, and there's a fish in there. If you could imagine rotating as I am doing the torso twist or making a full golf swing, if I rotate and stay fairly centered, that fishbowl will not disrupt. If I slide back on the backswing laterally and then slide way forward on the follow through, I'm going to splash that water, and it's going to pull me out. It's going to pull me out of balance, but it's also going to disrupt basically the fishbowl, therefore making it very difficult to be consistent and allow the club to get back to the same place through impact. So I like the fishbowl image to make it easier for a person to stay calm, rhythmic, and rotate that body. So with the orange peel, what's unique about it, when you're centered on it, that's the best way to train your natural golf swing. But once you get the hang of that, here's where I believe the orange peel can also make the rest of your golf game even a little bit easier. When we're on the driving range, we are on a perfectly flat surface. Every lie is perfect. But when you get on the golf course, it's not like that. You've got uphill lies, you've got side hill lies, you've got downhill lies. You've got to deal with a lot of different situations. So with the orange peel, because of its unique design, I can move my feet to a different location. If you see the second picture from the left, I've moved my left foot high and my right foot low. Basically, I'm in an uphill lie. So from the comfort of my home, my garage, my office, anywhere where you have an orange peel, you can create multiple lie angles and learn how to balance your body on these so when you're on the golf course, it's not complicated. When I take students out onto the golf course and have them do playing lessons, I will always try to put them in some uneven lies and see how they handle the golf swing as well as the finish of that golf swing. And it's amazing how few of them can actually finish in balance. So by practicing on this orange peel, you can be ready for it. But as players, we need to then practice and learn how our setup to these particular lie angles will be affected. Like on an uphill lie, I'm going to hit it higher. On a side hill lie with the ball above my feet, I'm going to tend to draw it or hook it. So I need to learn to play for that. That is something, that's kind of the beauty of golf. That's where you get to explore and experiment and learn and have fun. But if you can make the motion simple and athletic, then these drill or those experiments are all fun because you're still making the same motion. You're doing it consistently. Now you're doing it from uneven lies, and now you're noticing the shot pattern will be different. If done correctly, you can utilize these uneven lies to your benefit, and that's a beautiful thing. We also use the orange peel for chipping. I can get my lead foot into the lowest part of this orange peel, and because that's at ground level, I put a golf ball there and I will hit chip shots. This will encourage my weight to stay on my left side. Because it's a downhill lie, it's going to encourage me to release my body through the chip shot, which I've come to learn is very important. And also, I can allow my shoulders to be on a better plane so they get more of a descending blow into the golf ball rather than me trying to lift it in the air. As we all know, lifting it in the air makes it very difficult, and it's very problematic to have a flush contact with the golf ball. So basically in closing about my thoughts on the simple golf swing, what I really learned was if a person, and it doesn't matter if they're a PGA Tour player or an average player at a club, if they have a nice athletic setup where they are balanced, if they're holding the club with a neutral grip, then they are much more apt to learn and to trust this swinging motion. And once we can learn to trust this swinging motion and then basically just have the golf ball get in the way of our very well made new golf clubs, because clubs are made so well today, you've got room for error with bounce on the bottom of your clubs. Or our drivers, boy, you could probably hit an inch any which way off of that sweet spot and it's still going to be okay. So we've got some room for error. But the more you can produce an athletic swinging motion that's in balance and basically develop that as your skill, it's going to be easier for you when you play the game. If you've heard me speak before, I'll always refer back to the movie The Karate Kid. He had Mr. Miyagi, his objective with Daniel-san was to have him do all these that seemed like chores, but what he was teaching him was a skill as to how to use his body. Painting the fence was a motion that he used later on. Wax on, wax off. All of those kind of silly things that he was doing were leading to a skill. Once you have that skill, and once you trust that skill, and then when you work with your professional or you work with one of your students, then your job becomes actually easier and more productive, because now we're getting away from the swing thoughts and the controlling of the swing, and we're moving toward the ability to manage one's game around a golf course and then help them aim properly and practice properly. So I believe this will allow you to free up a lot of your students as well as yourself. So as I wind this down, We'd love to know if any of you have any questions that we can help to answer and process through. And let me get in. There's a few questions I have here on the line, and let me get to a couple of those and see what we've got here. Okay. So, okay, here's a great one. People are asking, what is the best model to buy if I can only purchase one? And that's a wonderful question. With the Orange Whip, we have actually 4 different versions. We have a junior version, which is obviously for the kids. It's lighter. It's got a smaller grip. It's just easier for the young kids to swing. We estimate it's roughly for the 7 to 12-year-old kids. But let's just say you have an elderly woman who's quite short. Let's say she's 5 foot tall and not all that strong. I'm going to give her the junior. She's going to have a much better time with it. It's going to be easier for her to use. Also, we've got, for the adults, we have 3 versions of Orange Whip. We've got the Orange Whip Trainer, which is our longest version. It's got the white counterbalance on it. It's 47.5 inches long in total length, but since you would not grip over the top of the counterweight, it's about 2 inches less than that because your hand would be below that on the actual grip. Now, when it's on that actual grip, then it's about the length of a typical driver these days, between 45.5 and 46 inches long. But for some golfers, that's still a little bit long for them to swing. We also have what we call the mid-size. That is 4 inches shorter, closer to a long iron or a hybrid for a lot of us golfers. But if you're under the height of 5'8", it may be better suited for you as a driver. We've also introduced what we call the Orange Whip Compact. The Orange Whip Compact is 8 inches shorter than the mid-size, so quite a bit shorter. We call it the Compact because we wanted something you could use in your home, your office, or let's say you're from the north in snow country, which is where I grew up. All winter long, I would love to have been able to work on my golf game. Having a compact allows you to do it in any environment as long as you have a little bit of space in the house to swing. But also this short version is great for working on chipping, pitching, and wedge shots. We need rhythm in all of these shots, so that's a very important aspect. So there's multiple sizes. I think you find the one that's more universally fit for you. Like I stated before, a taller golfer may like the full-size Orange Whip Trainer, but let's say that golfer hooks the ball quite a bit, drops it way inside, and hits a big draw. I may actually lean them towards the mid-size because I don't want such a flattened out swing. I would like to steepen their plane a little bit so they don't hit that big draw. So there's some tall golfers, especially on the PGA Tour, and that's a wonderful way to see that they can make their swing with the mid-size. So we have many PGA Tour players using the mid-size. And so it kind of depends on the player. And we also have some shorter golfers that are, let's say, 5'5" or 6", who come over the top quite a bit. I would lean them towards the Orange Whip Trainer because that is a wonderful way to learn to drop it inside and find the inside path to hit a draw. Let's see, we've got a few more questions. Someone asked, is there a weight limit for the orange peel? No, not necessarily. I built it so that it can handle most golfers. Our original version, we set on the concrete and drove a pickup truck over it, and it handled it fine. So that was pretty strong. Now, granted, we've made the newer version with less structural integrity to it, but it can handle a lot. So I don't believe there's a weight limit to it. I mean, if we're talking 400 pounds plus, well, then there's a possibility. But even so, I still think it would be fine for that. Okay, I've got one here. It says, what are the Orange Whip drills used in the K-Vest? What K-Vest really liked was the shorter version of the Orange Whip, or our mid-size version, the golden one. What they would encourage is they would have someone get into their K-Vest, do some shots with their normal golf club, and then after getting some data recorded, they would take the golf club away, they'd give them either the Orange Whip Compact or the Orange Whip Midsize, have them swing back and forth in rhythm so that their hands, arms, and body can synchronize. Now that's That's so that when they go back to the golf club, they will be able to get hopefully improved data. And the way I would recommend doing this, even if you don't have a K-vest, hit some balls with your golf club, set it aside, take an orange whip, swing it back and forth in repetition until you find a beautiful rhythm and the speed you want, and then make a few individual swings with the orange whip, almost like you're hitting a shot. And then after you hit that, make the individual swings, go back to your golf club, but prior to hitting that shot, swing the golf club as if it's an orange whip, back and forth, find your rhythm. I liken it, I call it recalibration, because the orange whip is 1 3/4 pounds, much heavier than a golf club. But after 4 or 5 repetitive swings with your golf club, you will get the same sensation. And then go back to hitting your golf balls, and I think you'll find that you'll be more synchronized and more athletic. Let's see. There's another question here. What is the best or the correct way to use the orange whip with juniors, and how can it benefit them? You know, it's interesting that I've found with junior golfers in the orange whip, you'd think it would bore them immediately, but surprisingly enough, kids have a more of an interest in swinging this back and forth and finding it kind of fun because they can feel that rhythm, that motion, and they can get pretty full with these swings and pretty powerful with these swings. So basically, I would recommend using it as I do with adults. I would do the torso twist first, so they can use their body in that range of athletic motion. Then I would do the one-handed version if they are strong enough, and do each hand. Now, if they're not strong enough, obviously you as an instructor will need to determine that and decide if they're capable. And then also just the repetitive full swing motion, doing that back and forth, developing that skill. And finally, individual swings with the orange whip will be great, because there's 3 issues that I look to when I'm having a person swing the orange whip as an individual swing, as if they were hitting a golf ball. The first point, takeaway. If you snatch or pull it back too fast, it's going to pull you off balance. So you got to take it away smooth. In the transition, if you don't wait for it to load and you go too early, it's going to throw you off balance and feel awkward. And finally, because of the weight and the momentum of the orange ball, it will carry you into a balanced finish position. So I'm looking for juniors and adult golfers to take it away smoothly, smooth transition, and a balanced full finish. So that's be the way I'd recommend for juniors as well as adults. Okay. Okay, I will take one more question. Let me look through here quickly. Okay, I've got a nice question here. It says, I want to prevent casting and work on impact position with my players. Have you ever used the whip with an impact bag? I like the hinge drill, but did not want to promote flipping the club over. And that's a great question. So the over-the-top motion, again, in my opinion, is for those golfers who are tense and they're trying very hard to hit the ball. So they are, from the very top of their swing, they're trying to throw that club head to hit the ball. They're using their hands and wrists to hit it, which a lot of people consider flipping, and that is accurate. So let me actually talk a little bit very briefly about this. When doing either the one-handed drill or the full swing drill, because of the weight of that orange ball, it's harder to cast an orange whip. It's harder to flip it. And if you do, you will feel it because it will throw you off balance almost immediately. So by doing these drills, you're learning to lag the club head behind, let it load, and then learning to rotate your body through and letting the club or the chain of events eventually whip that club head through on the proper path to directly connect with the back of the ball. Well, this leads to the impact bag. Here's my hesitation with the impact bag and the orange whip. I like the impact bag with a golf club because they've got steel shafts, they're very strong. The orange whip has a fiberglass shaft, and it can handle a lot, but we really discourage impacting anything with it. So I would kind of sway away from the impact bag with the orange whip, but I do like the impact bag for use with golf clubs. So with an orange whip, I'd say no, but as far as casting, I believe the orange whip will immediately get a person to feel what you probably have been telling them as their student, as their instructor telling your student what casting is and how to eliminate it. Within a couple of minutes of using the orange whip, I think they'll look at you and say, hey, I think I understand what you're talking about when I cast or flip my wrists. Because it's so exaggerated with the weights on each end that it should eliminate that flipping. So I hope that was helpful. I think we're going to wrap her up right now, but thank you for the great questions. And I think you're gonna actually let me handle this last question. This is a great one. I'll do it very quickly. It says, how can you use the orange whip for rehab for the shoulders? And that's a great one because I have a bit of a shoulder issue back from my caddy days. And this is nice because the orange whip is so flexible that it does have the weight, but it's so flexible that it's low impact. So what I recommend is very slow, soft swings with the orange whip if you have a shoulder issue, and let your body tell you if how that feels or if that hurts. We've had many people talk to me about lower back issues and shoulder issues, and they've done a great job using the orange whip to feel a rehab or a sensation of improvement to their body. But talk with your doctor if necessary. And also, if it hurts, don't do it. I mean, go easy. Go easy with it. All right. Well, thank you very much. I hope that was informative. And through our website and actually through our social media pages, we will be able to answer any further questions. Okay.
Well, hey, thanks, Jim. This is Steve again. Thanks, everybody, for attending. We've got some information up on the screen here for everybody. We had a lot of questions coming in, so thank you very much. We had a great response, and that's awesome. Email us at info@orangewhiptrainer.com if you have more questions. Jim will try to answer as many as he can. If you have any other questions about our products or pricing or anything like that, please reach out to us. You can also call us, and we'll also always get answered in person. And like I said, the recording of the session will be in a follow-up email tomorrow. We'll also be sending you guys a survey. So it's just a few questions, take you literally 30 seconds. We appreciate it if you fill that out. And it'll definitely help make things a little better in the future. Like I said, we've got some great content coming up in the future months with some great teachers and some great topics. So thanks, everybody. And Jim, thank you. And we'll see everybody around.
Thank you.